welcome. It's a great honor for the state of Idaho to have one of our cabinet secretaries that is a big part of President Trump's initiatives from one end to the other. Obviously, we're talking about making America healthy again. As we talked earlier, it's kind of been our ethos in Idaho before we had a name to it. You get credit for the name. And I was visiting with the secretary, and we were talking about the things that we've done in Idaho, just the last year or two, but even before that, of what we do to give individuals in Idaho all the liberty and freedom they can possibly have, and still make America healthier and make Idaho healthier. To me, it's the right thing to do for a person. It's even more the right thing to do for their families. And I think the president and the secretary have talked about it's a patriotic duty to do for the whole country. And that's just a big part of it. I know the secretary is going to talk about whether it's our Idaho Medical Freedom Act or what we're doing in the SNAP area or what we're doing in some of the other things. So with that, Mr. Secretary.
Thank you very much, Governor Little. We had a meeting, a roundtable with some of the government officials before this. I pointed out something that during the COVID pandemic, 37 hours after he took the oath of office, swearing to uphold the Constitution, President Biden commissioned a team within the White House to begin censoring me and a few of other people. The court documents that we now have and the disclosures from the Twitter files and from Mark Zuckerberg show that I was the first one that was censored. There were thousands of Americans censored at that time, and once they figured out that they could censor Americans, that they could attack that central fundamental freedom of free speech, the founders put freedom of speech in the First Amendment because all of the other rights depend on it. If you don't have freedom of speech, freedom to criticize your government and its policies, you have a government that has that capacity to silence its critics, has a license for any kind of atrocity. And they began immediately when they figured out that we were going to put up with that. They began attacking the rest of the constitutional guarantees. They went after the rights to the assembly with social distancing regulations. They went after the freedom of worship by closing all the churches in our country. They kept the liquor stores open, the Walmarts open, as essential businesses. Closed all the churches in our country without due process. They closed 3.5 million businesses in violation of the Fifth Amendment guarantees of due process and just compensation. They violated the search and seizure prohibitions in the Fourth Amendment by the track and trace regulations. They went after jury trials. The Seventh Amendment says that no American should be denied the right of a trial or juries of his peers. In case of the controversies exceeding $25 in value, there's no pandemic exemption. The founders knew all about the pandemics. There were 2 epidemics during the Revolutionary War that almost destroyed the American Army malaria epidemic. It was the Army of Virginia and a smallpox epidemic in the Army of New England. And they literally made an attack against the entire Constitution. Most of the states in the country went along with it. There were 2 that didn't. One was Florida, and the other was Idaho. But Idaho did better than any other state in preserving those essential American freedoms, and a lot of that was because of the leadership of Governor Little. I wanted to come out here I've been wanting to come out here since I got the job as secretary to congratulate him and to thank him for standing up for the American Constitution, unlike any other state. And I wanted to get out here in time, like I've done in many other states, to be with the governor when he signed this SNAP waiver. And when he signed the bill prohibiting or allowing the prohibition, limiting the cell phone use in schools, but he moved too quickly for me to get out here. So I was happy to come out here for this proclamation. This state, more than any state in the country, stands for not only medical freedom, but healthy, a healthy population. Understands, as the governor said, that's a patriotic duty. It's a civic duty of every American. It's our patriotic duty. Medicaid is now bankrupting our states. It's a third of the budget in many states, and it is growing exponentially. And the only way that we're going to deal with that is by dealing with the chronic health epidemic. When my uncle was president, 3% of Americans had chronic disease. Today, it's 6 out of 10. And it's 90% of our medical costs. When my uncle was president, we spent 0 on chronic disease in this country. Today, we spend $1.3 trillion a year. As I said, it is rising exponentially, and there's national security issues. 8 out of 10 of our kids do not qualify for military service. We have fertility problems now. Teenagers in this country, teenage males, have half the sperm count and half the testosterone as 65-year-old men. American girls are hitting puberty 6 years early. Oh, something is wrong. The autism rates, in 1970, the largest epidemiological study in history of any country in the world was performed here in the United States, in Wisconsin. They looked at 900,000 kids and they were looking for autism incidents. They found 3 kids. The rate of autism at that point, and many other studies that validated the Wisconsin study, was 0.7 in 10,000, so less than 1 in 10,000. The numbers that we released a month ago, 1 in 31 kids. And it's probably much worse than that because they did it state by state, and a lot of the states don't collect the data very well. California collects it the best, and their numbers are 1 in every 19 children, 1 in every 12.5 boys. Diabetes, when I was a kid, the average pediatrician would see 1 case of diabetes during an entire 40 or 50-year career. Today, 38% of teens are pre-diabetic or diabetic. And so 1 out of every 3 kids, more than 1 out of every 3 kids who walks through this office door is now pre-diabetic or diabetic. And this is the biggest cause, and one of the reasons for that is because we're poisoning kids with food stamp program. So I think it's 18% of the food stamp program when it goes to candies or sodas, 10% go to sugared sodas. And so we're poisoning the poorest Americans, giving them diabetes, and then we're paying for it with Medicaid in the long run. And we're for freedom. If you want to drink a Coke, you ought to be able to do it. But the American taxpayer should not be paying for it. And we're going to end that system, but we need the governors, and other governors are now following Governor Little's leadership and applying to Brooke Rollins for SNAP waivers. So we're I'm very honored to be with you, Governor Little, and I'm very happy to be here in Idaho, which is the home of medical freedom, home of good health, and has a commitment like no other state, making its population healthy again. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. So with that, I have as often we do in this room, I have a proclamation from the Office of the Governor. Whereas Idaho proudly leads the nation in ushering the Make America Healthy Again movement through numerous actions that support healthy Idahoans of all ages, especially our children. And whereas the health and safety and well-being of Idahoans remains a top priority for our state, ensuring families, communities, and our economy thrives under strong principled leadership. And whereas the state of Idaho is thankful for the guidance and leadership of President Trump and his administration in keeping Idaho communities safe and healthy. And whereas the state of Idaho has been a national leader in restoring balance to federal nutrition programs through targeted SNAP waiver. Whereas executive and legislative action limited cell phone use in Idaho schools reflects a commitment toward our children's academic excellence and character development. And whereas the state of Idaho remains committed to protecting life, preserving medical freedom, and ensuring our children are taught with age-appropriate values in schools that respects parental rights and community standards. And whereas Idaho has prioritized investments in clean, reliable water infrastructure, ensuring long-term public health and resource stewardship for generations to come. And whereas these achievements reflect Idaho's steadfast belief in limited government, individual liberty, and the essential roles of families and communities in keeping our state strong and free. Now therefore, I, Brad Local Governor of the state of Idaho, do hereby proclaim August 25 to be Keep Idaho Healthy Month in Idaho. And I encourage all citizens to recognize this special observance. Signed, Brad Local.